Matt. Great to see everyone, almost virtually see everybody. And thanks to AusActive for having us do this. And of course, all the great work they've been doing to help our industry become more inclusive. So look, I think the NDIS is one of the best opportunities we as an industry have ever had to help people with a disability be involved in the fitness industry and train with our PTs and in our gyms. But there's a lot of questions about it. So there's a lot to try and get through here. So quickly jumping onto it. Here are some of the things that we're going to try and get through within all of this. So these are the FAQs that we tend to get. We've also got Tyler here. He's our manager. He'll also jump in and help with any comments as well in case I don't get to them. But I'm going to try and get through these questions in basically 50 slides. So I'm going to go quick on all of this. So hopefully we'll get to it. If we don't, please put it in the comments or please hit us up afterwards with any questions. We're here to answer anything we can. So onto some of the big ones. So I guess the first one would be, what gives me the right to talk about this? What's my background and so on? So I'm Scott Hunt. That slogan that just popped up, we're here for you when the gym isn't, that's actually was a slogan I had way back last century when I started my business. So I was literally a teenager then, don't do the maths on that. And that's really where the focus was, is realizing that the bulk of people who need to go to a gym are probably never going to go to a gym. And so that's what I set my business up as a fairly caring sort of person. So helping people with disabilities hasn't just been something we've gone, this is cool, there's the NDIS. This is something we've been doing for over 2 decades as a business, but the NDIS has given us an opportunity like never before to really double down on that. Experience-wise, that's a bit of a brief rundown of what I've done over the years. The old pick and the old pick we have there is one of our clients that we've had for literally 24 years. She started with, this was my first client. I no longer train people. Tyler here trains her. And so that's the example of sort of what I would like to think is the great work we're doing to help people who would never have stepped foot into a gym. As far as speaker ability, here's a super quick rundown of our process with us. Our NDIS journey began in 2018. And we've basically been in our sort of current form since about 2022. Really, the Fit Ability name is an extension of what we've always done with fitness enhancement, and it's so that way we can have a name that really embodies who we are as a business. The name Fitness Enhancement Personal Training, NDIS registered, doesn't seem to have the same kind of ring to it, does it? Importantly, we're NDIS registered for core and capacity building, which these line items down there. That'll make a little bit more sense in a little bit, but that's been a really key thing, is getting all these line items for us, and that's what I'm going to be talking to you guys about as well. So where are we today as an organization? So we are the largest NDIS registered PT company in Australia. We're the only company registered for the core line items and 7 line items that you saw before, or anything close to that. As we'll hear in a bit, that's critical to being able to actually help everyone, as opposed to turning people away who can't get funding for personal training, which is unfortunately all too common. I'll go have my bluntness about how that's seen sometime down the track in this webinar. As an organisation, we service over 3,000 suburbs. So if we're not in your suburb yet, we would love to be, so reach out. We've been lucky enough to be awarded a couple of big things over the years. We, back when it was Fitness Australia, we were awarded one of the top 5 PT businesses of the year. We're the only NDIS registered company to have been in that as well. Last year, we won the Employer of the Year as well, which is really exciting. That's for a brand with more than 10 locations, by the way. We're really passionate about looking after our people, and we've had many people with us for more than 10 years. We are also up for another couple of awards at the awards night next Friday night. So hopefully I'll see some of you there, and hopefully it'll be a great night for all. And we're really passionate about pushing what we're about and helping more people get active who didn't necessarily think that the gym scene might be for them. So we get a fair bit of media coverage about that, as you can see a few little glimpses up there. So where does this sort of all sit? And this is, I guess, more probably the branding and the marketing, the business of it. No, you didn't come here for a business lecture, I know, but there is an element of this that's important. To me, what happens is you've got these 3 separate industries that are all separate, okay, to some extent. allied health and disability support sort of go together, but PTs are seen as something quite different a lot of the time. What then typically happens is, like we were as fitness enhancement, we're seen as not a part of these other industries. Even though we were always inclusive, we always had clients with disabilities. We did many of the things that I'm sure many of you guys are doing. We just couldn't quite get over that hurdle of not being a part of these industries. But when we brought in the name Fit for Ability, plus of course the NDIS registrations, plus of course everything backing that up as well, that's what really made allied health, medical industry, disability industry go, oh, well, these people are talking our language. They're for us. We can trust these people. Between you and me, we're no better now than we were as PTs 5 years ago. We were great 5 years ago. We're great now. But there's that perception of, are you the stereotypes and gym junkie, or are you a part of allied health and disability support? Now, we're clearly not allied health, but it's showing us our language. Just so I'm not always plugging my examples, another great example of a name change to align with the right people and the right values and right message better. No better example than Fitness Australia changing to AusActive. They did it because having the word active aligned with where their values were and who they wanted to support and so on as well. And we've all seen, I think, the improvement that's come along with that too. Many other brands out there have done that over the years as well. So for your own business, if we're not for you, consider what you can do to have a name that's more inclusive. I think as soon as you have a business name that's all about flexing your muscles and the aesthetics of it, that's part of the industry, that's fine, but it's going to straight away deter allied health and disability support industries. So just be mindful of that when you're thinking, can I just whack on that NDIS badge? You really have to align it with these other things as well to get the impact that you want. So onto that with the NDIS, assuming you're doing that as well, because that's what really one of the many things helps you tap into it. This has been huge for the fitness industry. As far as I'm aware, this is the first time there's ever been any decent government funding for the industry. It just simply doesn't happen, where the government is literally paying you to be a PT 2, 3, 4 times a week with a client, paying you, and it's as simple as that. It's quite, having had 20 years in business, where we've frequently had clients we'd love to be able to help with disabilities, who even though we normally give them a discount and so on, they just can't afford them. We're turning them away. Now we have the government paying for them. To me, there's no better place for our tax dollars to go than supporting those who need our help the most. Because remember, it's government funding. It's not the NDIS participants' money. There's an element of income security there. I don't think we can ever say anything is recession-proof, but put it this way, when interest rates go up, we probably all lose a client paying for it themselves because interest rates have gone up and it's deemed a luxury purchase. When they go up in general, we don't ever lose an NDIS participant. It's seen as an absolutely essential service when fitness is unfortunately too often seen as a luxury. We know the ridiculousness of that. We know the dramas we all had through COVID with that ridiculousness of it. Fitness should be seen essential from everyone, but when it's through the NDIS, it's more likely to be sort of classified as essential. So that makes it a little bit safer. It's also creating more jobs for PTs. How many PTs would love to do PT full time, but they can only get a few clients in the night and the morning, and it's their side hustle. So you can get more work during the quiet times of the day, help more people, more likely to be able to make a full-time living off it. There's literally no drawbacks except for all the hassles and paperwork, which I will get to soon. So in summary, what I really feel a lot of this is basically done, it is almost like a stamp of approval for NDIS registered providers. I've had that tagline on our fitness enhancement site forever, award-winning personal trainer since 1999. And we go and, me especially being the founder, we go and proudly say to doctors and allied health and everything, that line, and they'd be like, oh, that's cool, but yeah, I'm not giving you my clients, right? Now we say NDIS registered, and we double down on that and say registered for core supports. They're like, here's my clients. I need you. I need your help. Please help them. It is that, not just sort of a metaphorical stamp of approval. It is. There are no cowboys that are NDIS registered providers, whereas within the PT industry, doesn't matter how great a job all of you guys do, the reality is there's certain people that, let's just say, aren't making our industry look crash hot for the rest of us. So it's about differentiating yourself within those things as well. So really our ultimate mission with all of this, whether people be a part of our organization or not, this is our ultimate goal. We want people with a disability to have that same support as the rest of the country in regards to getting fit, strong, healthy and active with an exercise professional. Now, to be honest, I don't think that's too big a goal to reach for, because let's face it, the rest of the country doesn't really do as much exercise as they should anyway, right? So, you know, it's what, 16, 17% of the country has a gym membership. So it's not like everyone in Australia is exercising when they should be. We're just saying people should exercise as much, whether they have a disability or not, but we need to create the environment for them to be able to do that. The NDIS is a big part of it, but it's also the other things I've spoken about that. So whether you're part of the organization or not, we're all on the same team here. We're all aiming for that. In particular, you guys have taken the time out of your day to actually attend a webinar on this. I tend to find all of these events, whether it be this or any other webinar or industry conference or whatever, you tend to get the best of the best in our industry. So, you know, let's all bring the rest of the industry up there with us lot. So how big is this niche? I get a lot of people saying that, oh, that's an interesting small little niche, this whole disability thing. It's not really a small niche. We have 4.3 million Australians with a disability, 17% of the country. 1 in 5 people, or 1 in 3 households has someone with a disability in it. Most people sort of think, if they're not aware of these numbers, they're sort of like, I don't know people with a disability. But remember, you know, if you're in a more privileged environment, you might not know many people. But also disabilities aren't always visible as well. So it is a massive part of our population. It's not a small niche. In fact, if you know the stats about how many people go to a gym on a regular basis, more people have a disability than are a gym junkie in our country. So, but you look at how many great places there are for a gym junkie and how many great places there are for someone with a disability, and there's really something missing here. So that's what we're committed to trying to change that. Now, not everyone with a disability is on the NDIS. About 600,000 people are, and it's rapidly growing as more and more people can get funding. But what the NDIS also does is it creates awareness for everyone. You tend to have people going, even able-bodied clients, wow, if you can help someone with that disability, you can probably help me because I'm just really out of shape and a bit lazy. So you can probably help me because I see the great work you do with someone with a disability. So it's not just about people with a disability, about anyone who's going, I can't go to a gym, in my opinion. Funding-wise, they are the numbers of dollars that the government, our taxes, put into the NDIS, growing to $50 billion. So it's a pretty scary number, but again, I'd rather see it go into helping those who need it the most than helping people who could get a job, to be honest. I've got to be careful how I say that. We know what I mean. I think helping our most vulnerable people is extremely important. Now, clearly only a tiny minority of that would go into anything that all of us lot are doing. Remember, some people require 24/7 care to survive, and that's what a lot of funding goes into too. So problems we have. Blame the internet for these memes I'm finding, but it is a good reflection of how people feel about the industry, right? So these are some of the problems that we know we have as personal trainers. There's a million examples like this out there. I just found the funniest one I could, because we've got to try to line it up a little bit. We know that these are some of the perceptions of our industry. And look, you know, some aren't necessarily that bad, some are pretty horrible. But either way, they're not reflective of what I'm sure a lot of us do. I'm sure a lot of you guys have a couple of clients with disabilities, and the question is just how do you help more people with disabilities? And you never ever see any of these things reflecting that part of our industry. So that makes it tough for us to actually get that exposure, and that's why I'm really calling on everyone to get out there and spread the great work you're probably already doing, because when we're not posting a selfie a day, we tend to not get quite as much of attention as some other parts of the industry, I think. So that then really stems to this. We tend, when we go to a lot of disability expos and promote ourselves at disability expos a lot. The most common thing people say, if they don't already know who we are, is they're literally baffled and they're like, but I didn't know a PT or a gym or the fitness industry in general could help someone with a disability. They're honestly baffled most of the time. That is the most common thing. So it's not about then, who do I choose? It's, I didn't even think that was an option for someone with a disability, is the most common thing. And the reality is, the young bloke in the wheelchair there in the picture, no wonder he and his family are thinking the industry is not for him, with images like what I showed before. So, but we all know clearly there's some heavy exercise modifications for someone with certain disabilities, but we all know that really it's almost no one who will not benefit from actual exercise. Almost everyone benefits in some way, shape, or form. It's just about being able to modify. On that note, this is my point about being an untapped industry, which I guess is great for us in some respects, but horrible for society. In an expo with 200 or so exhibitors, we're typically the only company there promoting fitness. That's it. It's just us. And there's about 199 other ones that are disability support, allied health, disability products and services, all different things. So it really is that sort of untapped market in that respect, and us alone can't do enough to make a difference. I think we've all got to work on that together. So regardless of the NDIS as well, there's a few easy ways here to actually show that you're inclusive to all abilities. So I'm guessing we've got about the most switched on inclusive people in the industry in this webinar, because otherwise you wouldn't be here if you weren't taking interest in these things. So you probably know a lot of this stuff already, but I think just really look at how you can double down on these different things that you probably already know to some extent, and just really look long-term with it. I know for me, having gone from, regular PT, yeah, we cater to everyone who doesn't want to go into a regular gym or can't go to a regular gym, to really doubling down and making a whole separate brand around fit mobility. The more I doubled down, the more, to be honest, opinionated I got on looking after the people who need the help the most, the better it was for us, and the better it was for our clients too, because it really showed them that we were the place for them. So within that too, we all know these things: collaborate with allied health, allied health, medical industry, disability professionals. It's a given, but there's some unique ways of also doing that, which I'll get to in a sec. But these are all things that everyone here can do quickly, easily, and cheaply. And the collective power of everyone doing that, I think, really helps everyone as well. So again, you Google NDIS meme and you get a lot of things like this, and it's true. You won't, I'm going to get into the nitty gritty and more complicated bits of it now. You won't understand it all after this. To be honest, I don't understand it all. That's why we have an office of people in our team who understand it collectively as a team, because it is a lot to understand. So anything I say here, please do your own research, do your double checks, check with your NDIS, check with your accountant, check with your insurance. I'm making some general assumptions about who you guys are and what you guys think and what might work here for you as well. So please do your double checks, and as always, reach out and ask for help from us. Again, we're all on the same team in that respect. So if you've got a general question, I can answer some things, I can't answer some things, but we'll definitely do our best where we can. So pretty simple question. First of all, what is NDIS? It's straight off the government website. In layman's terms, to me, it's just simply government funding to give people with a disability the basic human rights that we all deserve to have. I think that's the simplest way to look at it. It is actually brand new. So it only came out in July 2016. It came out in Queensland at the end of 2018, which is when we started. And it's only been fully national for a few years. So that's partly why there's such misunderstanding in it, because it's a humongous government system with billions of dollars that's brand new in the scheme of things. Of course, there's going to be struggles. So we've got to keep that in perspective. But hey, this is a whole lot better than when there was nothing at all like this, right? Again, this is straight off the government website, and I'm just putting in layman's terms for you. Again, it's just to really help people actually have that choice and control in their life to be able to do many of those things that you and I probably take for granted. It's as simple as that. What support is available? Again, don't think fitness industry when I'm saying this. Think all the things in your life that you take for granted, perhaps putting your shoes on every day. If someone has a full-time support worker, they may need help putting their shoes on. They may never put shoes on because they're in a wheelchair. They may need 24/7 care support to survive. So when we talk about $50 billion going into NDIS, we can kind of see how that's gets eaten up a lot by those really, really critical services. And then being able to offer what we do is a tiny, tiny portion of that. So that's not so much to do with us, but it's important to have an understanding of it. So there's 4 key words that you're going to hear the whole time within NDIS, and they're sitting at those top of those bullet points. It's permanent, significant, reasonable, and necessary. A lot of it all comes back to that as to funding or what you can and can't do. To knuckle down on the few top questions that we get about what you can and can't get. So no, people can't get NDIS funding for obesity or morbid obesity, diabetes, short-term injuries, and so on. Because, and again, I don't make the rules here, by the way, so I'm just explaining the way I've had it explained to me. This is government rules, not my rules. But this is so you guys understand why someone who's morbidly obese, you're thinking they have a disability, they should be able to get funding, why they can't. Government just doesn't recognise it that way. If someone breaks their leg, well, it's not permanent. The leg will heal. They're not permanently disabled. And even if they're left with a limp, it's not significant. So therefore, they won't get funding for that. If they lose their leg, that is permanent. That is significant. And you can kind of say it's reasonable and necessary that they need rehabilitation work from a physio or an EP, and then ongoing training support from a personal trainer. That is reasonable and necessary. There's a million variables within that. No one's ever happy with the outcome. No one ever completely agrees. But again, think of how good this is compared to what we used to have. The other big question we get around this is, can there be funding for a gym membership? No, there can't be, because it's the government basically goes, if you're capable of walking into a gym and exercising independently, which is how most gyms work, right? Well, you don't need disability support for that. So therefore, it's not reasonable and necessary to pay someone for that. So that's why there's no gym membership funding. But with core supports, there are various workarounds with that, because of course, if the person's wanting to go to a gym with a support worker, et cetera, we have support workers, for example, who are sometimes our PTs in the role of support worker, who then go to a gym with the person, and that support work is funded. So there's a lot of small things. I guess for you guys, when you're looking and you're hearing those things, just keep thinking back those top sorts of things I was saying, and just try and think of it from the NDIS perspective, not from the fitness industry perspective, and it might help you figure out some more solutions to any issues that you've been having there. So NDIS plans, you'll hear a lot about that the whole time. So that is what the NDIS participant has. It's a sort of a structured document in the government style. It's about 20 pages long. It's unique to them, and it's talking about their goals and all different things and what the funding is for. A good sort of example might be John's goal is to increase his independence and confidence so he can get a job one day. He is going to achieve that by doing social arrangements, by doing some rehabilitation work, because he's not stable to get on the bus by himself, and being socially engaged in the community, and that will give him the confidence to then get a job. Now, again, we're thinking like PTs, we're not thinking like the government when we say this, but we all know what are a couple of great ways to increase confidence, independence, stability when you walk. Exercise and fitness, right? Who would have thought? We all know that. Someone like that would typically not get funding for personal training, in my experience, having looked at a million plans. But what we can do, and depending on what they've got, then you may be able to do some of these things too. what we can do is align the goals with what our personal trainers can do within their scope of practice, and they can also work as support workers. So if they get funding for a support worker to, do something recreational, they can get funding with us basically. Dollars wise with plans, you'll see ones that are, ranging from thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and a whole lot higher for someone who needs 24/7 support, who are probably not the types of clients we'd be getting. If they do get funding for PT, it tends to range from about $1,000 to $10,000 per year. The core funding, though, is where the majority of the clients have their funding. It's not uncommon for us to get a client with core funding who will do $10,000, $20,000 of support work or personal training with us a year. And we've had $46,000 is the most we've had a person spend in a 1 year period with us. And that's core supports, right? So that obviously we have the PT doing support work with them. I'll use Tyler here as an example. He's got a client where they do a workout, they have a coffee, they go walk the support dog, and they have a workout and it's training. But the guy just has a hangout and enjoys a coffee, and everyone enjoys his support dog coming as well. So we get a lot of people like that as well. Now, another I guess frequently asked question, or perhaps even more of a complaint for some of the NDIS knockers out there. It is not the NDIS participants' money. It's not coming out of their pocket. It is the government's money, which is where our tax dollars go to, by the way, right? If the NDIS participant doesn't spend it, it goes back to the government. So before we had core fundings, we had so many people we had to turn away, desperately wanting to train, going, I'm going to lose my funding. We couldn't help them because they didn't have funding for personal training. Money went back to the government. Not a good situation for them, not a good situation for us wanting to help people. So that's a big thing to remember. If you get those questions, or more some of the NDIS knockers, is they're given that money to actually help them achieve their goals. If they can't spend it, government gets it back. That's not an ideal situation for anyone. So line items. You've heard me talk a little bit about core and so on. So again, this is my example with our organization. Every single place is different out there, whether it be a NDIS registered PT company or disability support companies or nursing companies. They've all got different line items. These on the left are our ones. So you'll see, for example, it says we're registered for exercise physiology and personal training. We are registered to offer EP, but we don't have accredited EPs with us, so therefore we don't offer that. But that's the black and white wording on the NDIS, hence why we're always saying EP and PT. The rest are all essentially core supports. And you can use your own common sense as to what some of those things mean. And again, if we've got, for our PTs, if they're going, yeah, great, I'll go kick the footy with someone, pick them up from school, help them with dinner, watch the footy with them, then that's great. That's a great day at the office, to be honest, when you're getting to just hang out and really help someone where they need it, and the government's paying you for it. So that all sounds pretty good. But again, this is the sort of thing you'll see the whole time when, again, just type in NDIS meme and you'll see my research on some of these things. Just to not say it myself, I'm relying on some of the things out there to actually say some of those negative things out there. This is literally the ridiculousness that we see sometimes, i.e. someone wants personal training, it clearly aligns with their goal, but they don't have personal training funding, we have to turn them away, or used to have to in our situation. You hear it the whole time. And there's frustrations the whole time about those things. But again, just remember, multi-billion-dollar government system, that's brand new. Of course, it's not going to be perfect. So on negative stuff, these are some of the headlines I know you've probably seen within the media. Personally, working in the NDIS, I've never personally come across anything like this, certainly not in regards to our participants for our company, but all the support workers we work with, all the plan managers we work with, the people we know in the industry, the people we meet at expos. I've never met anyone with first-hand experience in these things. So I have no idea how common it is, other than reading the same headlines you guys read. But undoubtedly, there's a lot of money in it, but there are people who are doing the wrong thing. I think that's where for us as a PT industry, you also need to really push the fact that I just didn't jump on the NDIS bandwagon. I was inclusive and helping people, you know, since last century in my case, or for the last 10 years or whatever you've been helping people for, really push on that angle so people just don't think you're trying to jump on the NDIS money train, right? Another big FAQ we get, there is apparently an NDIS reform coming, and you know, the politicians saying the things they need to say. Will it have a negative impact? I don't know. I guarantee there'll be change. I think if we talk fitness industry, because that's what we're all about here, I don't think it will be a negative impact if you're ahead of the game, if you understand it, and you know how to work through. Change is constant. The people that survive, other people can adapt and grow. That's always been the case. Again, COVID was a perfect example of that, right? If you could adapt to what was thrown at you, you probably didn't do too bad. If you refused to adapt, you didn't do crash hot. So I think just remember that. But I don't see it being any massive negative thing. I think there'll be pros and cons. And the one thing that's constant is there will always be headaches trying to figure out new government policies about it. So I personally don't stress about it. I spend more time answering that question than I do stressing about it anyway. Despite all that, so we see PTs struggling with it. I'm guessing most of you have come into this webinar. Who have got some of those struggles that we're talking about. And you've probably already got the gist of it. These are some of the reasons, right? It's a complicated system, right? But it's also to our industry, we're not used to really strict mandatory government rules. We're kind of used to just being able to sort of do our own thing, really, aren't we? Compare that to, I don't know, let's just say a nurse who's in opening a disability support business, for example. That nurse is pretty used to complicated paperwork and policies and procedures. It's not as difficult for them to figure out as a PT who's never had to deal with a lot of those things. So that is actually, I think, one of the reasons with it. But, you know, again, pros outweigh the cons with all of these things. And you need to, within this, be thinking not just where are you career-wise right now in 2023, but where do you want to be in 5 years' time? Remember, 5 years ago, the NDIS barely even existed. So where do you want to be in 5 years from here with the NDIS, or even just our industry in general tends to be pushing a lot more into helping people and sickness prevention versus just getting fit, basically. I think our industry is pushing a lot more on that. So yeah, where do you want to be in 2028? I know where we want to be personally. So just to try to simplify it a little bit now, because that's all pretty complicated. Sorry for giving anyone a headache about some of those things. Here's the simplest way just to simplify what you think about the NDIS. Don't think of clients as NDIS versus able-bodied or worse, NDIS and normal, which of course infers NDIS is abnormal. Probably not the most inclusive language to be using, is it? Just be going, everyone's a client. Everyone's got their struggles, everyone's got their dramas, some more than others, and everyone's a client you're going to look after. The NDIS, in regards to getting paid, you should just be thinking of, here is just a different, unique payment system that's got some headaches around it, but it's worth it because the pros outweigh the cons. It's just a different payment system. Whether they're on the NDIS or not, they're the same person. In fact, we've had many clients. In fact, the lady actually in this photo was, she trained, I think she was with us about 8 years training. So she was with us before the NDIS even started. She has several disabilities and is on the NDIS now. But when she trained with us, she was never on the NDIS because it didn't exist clearly back, 30, 40 years ago when she was born. It didn't exist. And then she just thought it wasn't worth the hassle. So it doesn't change who she is or what her goals are. If she gets NDIS funding, it's just a unique way that you're going to get paid. It doesn't actually change who your client is. So everyone's a client. Give them all that same, I guess, respect and courtesy and that sort of respect, rather than sort of going NDIS and regular, which is how I've heard some people in the industry say it. So as far as them being a great PT, that's another big question we get about, what qualifications do I need? What skills do I need? What courses do I need? And we get a lot of different things like that. We get all those questions the whole time. I've actually got a pretty simple answer for you. That's what makes you a great disability PT. It is honestly that simple. Again, I'm talking to a group that's obviously quite engaged in this. So I can say it to you guys. There would certainly be some people I'd be saying where it's like, you need to do more qualifications within it. But I find people are engaged as you guys. To be honest, you're probably already doing a great job. You're probably experienced. You've probably had a client or two with disabilities. You're probably caring, empathetic, selfless, always learning new things. That makes you great. Of course, I'm all for ongoing education, but really, I don't believe that someone's suddenly going to be a great disability trainer because they did a one-day course, and that's going to make that much of a difference. It's not. It's who you already were that makes you great. And then, of course, before clients, whether you're NDIS registered or not, do your research on different things as well. So that way you then learn more about that specific disability, right? So that's really, really important to do. But your bigger skill set, you've probably already got that lifetime of transferable skills and how many years as a PT that are going to make you great already. As far as then what is actually required, just to go through that. So as far as nothing to do with us in regards to this, essentially you need your Cert 3 and 4 or similar. Obviously, if someone is, say, in the case of one person we know, experienced school teacher and qualified PE teacher, sporting coach, then they can do PT within the NDIS as well. The NDIS doesn't actually mandate the word Cert 3 and 4 doesn't actually exist in the NDIS guidelines. So bear that in mind. Now, of course, we would never have anyone who doesn't have a Cert 3 and 4 or substantially higher working for us, but that is actually what it says in the NDIS in regards to just personal training. That is different compared to, say, accredited exercise physiologist. It expressly says that. You need a disability worker screening card. Intrinsically, that is a police check. And you need the NDIS induction course. I would recommend anyone, regardless of us or anything else, I would recommend everyone already goes and does the free NDIS induction course. It's a couple of hours long, maybe an hour and a half long, I think. It's free and gets their disability workers screening card. These are government requirements to work with someone with the NDIS. Now, there's grey areas about do you need it if you're not registered or not, but to me, for the sake of $120 for the disability worker screening card and an hour and a half your time for free course, why wouldn't you go out there and do that and show that you're proactively trying to follow best practice within the NDIS? So the link I mentioned, our website /AusActive, I'll show you it again at the end. We'll put links to those for you. I'd strongly recommend you go and do that because it's just one extra little thing that you can just say to potential clients that you've already got, which might help. And you may get approached too by a disability support company or something who basically says, we want you right away, show us this stuff, and if you can't, we're just going to go to someone else. So better off having it now. Insurance, that's a no-brainer. But what a lot of people don't think about is the fact that you actually need to check that you're covered for what you're doing. And I say this regardless of the disability industry. Check with your insurance company that what you're doing are actually covered, because quite often people are doing something that they're not covered for, and you won't actually find that out until something horrible happens. Hopefully you'll never find out. But if you're paying the insurance money, you'd like to hope that you're covered for what you're doing. For our organisation, I would say this is the same with anything similar along those lines. If you're working for a disability support company or something, we have our own internal standards. When you get NDIS registered, you're put into the NDIS. Here's our staffing intake standards. Here's our compliance. Here's what we do if something goes wrong. Here's our risk minimization, and you're basically holding people up to that. And then we get audited on that. So we make sure people are up to that standard, of course. And lastly, as I kind of already inferred, it's not our job to make a great PT. We'll make you a better PT, but you should be a great PT already if you're coming on board with something like this. So as you probably get the vibe, the hard bit's not skills and qualifications. It's understanding the NDIS system. Now, we're in a unique position in our industry. If you're a disability support worker, you never touch anything to do with compliance or paperwork or anything like that whatsoever. Someone else does that, and the person who does that has no idea how to be a disability support worker typically. They're two totally separate things. Whereas us as PTs, we're used to kind of being the jack of all trades. You know, you own a PT business and you literally do everything in it, and you kind of have to know everything. That's just not possible with the NDIS. So that's partly where people sort of get confused. They're trying to understand stuff that they should go, hey, as an amazing PT, I'm not great at that stuff. Give it to someone else to sort out. But the nature of our industry is most of us wind up in self-employment, even if you're just a one-man show, and that makes it quite difficult to then figure out. So on to services, I've touched on most of this already, so I'll move quickly through it. There's no restriction on what personal training is. If you're talking other core funding and so on, you can offer other sort of low-level support services. The example I gave with Tyler, with the Guy Support Dog, is a perfect example of what I said before as well. The big thing, regardless of registered or not, is it's got to align with their plan and their goals. And that's really, really important to do. That's how you can sort of ensure that when their plan's up, it'll happen again. Again, frustrations, right? Again, we keep having this, and I just keep reminding the people when I speak to them, well, hey, this is better than it was before, when now you're booked solid all during the day, and you've never had that before in your whole career. Now you're booked solid during the day. So, you know, the complications, frustrating, but again, take the pros with the cons with it. And there will be, even if you're not registered, if you're working with NDIS, there will be more frustrations and complications than a non-NDIS client, to remember. Other questions we get is, where and when do people train? People on the NDIS, people are people. It's the same as what we normally get. Some of our NDIS participants work full time, and they're after that 6 p.m. time slot too. However, there is a massive amount of people who don't work or work limited hours, and they want to train during the day. If they have their support worker come with them, it's almost always during the day, because the rates are cheaper for that support worker, of course. So in our case, we've never been so busy as at quiet times a day. Probably the only other unique thing to this compared to non-NDIS clients is we'll often have SILS houses, that's supported independent living, where there's 2, 3, 4 people with a certain disability living together to get that independence. And we might go into that SILS house to train one or several participants within that as well. So that's quite unique to the disability industry, but the rest is, to be honest, not too dissimilar to what we're used to already. In our case, our studio have 100% private studios, so studios where separate private little training rooms. Long before the NDIS, that was a niche of ours. That was like, well, if you don't want to go to a gym and have crowds and weights and poses, come to our exclusive little place. So that's where we have a lot of our people come to. They enjoy that exclusivity too. How do you get clients? Again, some of this, we get those questions the whole time. I'm putting it in there just to sort of point out, it's kind of not that complicated sometimes. Now, of course, you might be going, but I don't have enough clients. It is complicated, but that's more a business and marketing question to me then. So if I quickly push through some of these things here around it. So for us, Google's huge. Hopefully Google's huge for you. Google NDIS personal trainer, and we normally rank 1 and 2 on Google. Sometimes the government website outranks us, but we try to keep ahead of them, but that's okay. They can outrank us sometimes, I'm sure. We get a fair bit of media exposure. This was on 7 News. We got that one there. Again, anyone can do PR and marketing and so on. If that's not your thing, then get someone whose thing it is to go and do that, because you got to build the brand. The other one that is unique to us is what you see in the bottom left. That's a provider finder. So that's something where you only can have NDIS registered providers on it, and you get a lot of business out of that as well, but only registered providers can actually be on that. Build your network. Again, that's the same with regular PT as well, right? It's just more important with it because these are the people here who either control the funds or are extremely influential in what the person chooses to do. So that's extremely important. They've all got their different quirks to them. Not enough time to explain all that now, but build your relationships with the people who have that, control's the wrong word, are giving that supportive advice as to how the person should be spending their funds. As I said, registered only. You can only be in the NDIS directory if you're registered. If you're registered, as far as getting clients goes, look, it's not too dissimilar to normal, but if you're registered, everything just works 10 times better. It's as simple as that. Look at the example I said before about us approaching doctors and so on, going award-winning PT since '99. It just simply worked 10 times better when we had NDIS registration. We didn't change that much. We just had that sticker to show them, and that's what makes a difference. Types of clients, again, everyone is unique. So you want to remember that, right? Personal training should be personal, right? Everyone should be treated personally and different. It's just, there's more uniqueness with some clients. That's all it is. Disabilities that you tend to be working with in the NDIS. So that's a very short list of the most common. I would say autism would by far be the most common, or a similar type of disability, but autism is such a broad topic. So just bear that in mind, that everyone's unique, everyone's different. This picture here on the left, I put in as a great example of, again, thinking outside the square with things. So this client's Mick. Mick's vision impaired. When he had sight, he did lots of triathlons. As a vision impaired person, he wanted to run a half marathon, wanted to raise money for Vision Australia and so on. He could not get funding for personal training. And again, don't shoot the messenger. Couldn't get funding for personal training because he's too fit. He doesn't need personal training, according to government. He's fit, but he wanted to train. So he had funding for innovative community participation. And so he could then get one of our PTs as a support worker to do that with him. This is Kelly, one of our trainers. She had never run a half marathon before. She had never worked with a vision impaired person, but she was an experienced PT who'd worked with disabilities, an amazing person, and was the absolutely perfect fit. Mick had a lot of experience in training someone. Mick had a lot of experience of working with someone who had never worked with someone vision impaired before. So he was there to sort of coach us through how to help him, right? So when it comes to skills and experiences, of course, Kelly did some research, but you can't have a practice vision impaired client to learn some skills on, can you? So it's not an issue, and Mick was ecstatic that he could achieve that goal. Kelly was pretty happy too. She got to tick off her bucket list goal of a half marathon and get paid for it, and it really helped someone who needed it at the same time. So that type of story is not that common, but it feels like daily we have amazing success stories that are also not that common. So it's very diverse, the work you tend to be doing. Goals of clients, again, it's very diverse. So we get some people like Kimberly here. Her goal was to be able to run. She has cerebral palsy. Was told she could never run, and she went on to achieve that. So we get some bigger, crazy goals like that. But ordinarily, it's a lot like your general population clients with this. Well, at least our target market, they're simply going, I can't do the things I should be able to do. Maybe I used to be able to do that, as was Kimberly's case, and I'm getting too old, large, injured, and I can't do what I used to be able to do. I just want to be able to do what I used to be able to do. It's essentially that times about 100 if someone has a disability a lot of time. No surprise here, there's not that much of a focus on aesthetic goals. You tend to not be too worried about how you look on your Instagram profile if you've got bigger things to worry about than your selfies. I'm being very blunt to our industry here, I know, but it is extremely, extremely refreshing to have people who aren't, as a PT, who aren't stressed about their first world problems quite so much. I'm being blunt here, as a PT who's been around for a quarter of a century here, but you guys know what I mean, I'm sure. Genuine, authentic goals, and that's great to be able to help people achieve those, as opposed to some of the more perhaps superficial goals that some other people have. So here's the other big one that we get the whole time. Is NDIS registration mandatory? And then, of course, is it worth it? And everything else following on from there. No, it's not mandatory. You've probably gathered that by now. But I guess in that respect, just go, if someone's going, I've got an unregistered provider here and a registered provider here, and all things created equal, who are they going to choose? Probably the registered provider, right? So it tends to be, if someone's already got, and if you guys who have clients on the NDIS already can probably speak to this. If you've got one or two clients like that, it's probably been because of great work you've already done with able-bodied clients, and then they've got a family member or friend with a disability, and they've got, oh, my PT might be able to help. They're amazing, and you picked them up that way. So that's normally how people pick up clients as unregistered. But as we know, with our own little network of people, there's only so big that can grow as a PT. NDIS registration is what really takes it to the next level. As far as is it worth it, we'll get into that in a sec, but it really depends on you and your business and your goals in regards to that. So to me, there's really three key options for PTs here. We've got registered with all those perks that we've gone through. I'm saying no access to core funding because we're the only one in the country who's ever done that. So most people would probably not be going to that extent and cost. But that's what you get with registered. If you're unregistered, there's drawbacks to it. But the great thing is, it doesn't really cost you that much to do, depending on how by the book you are, which you'll hear in a sec. And you can pick up the clients that you guys have probably already got a couple of, but it's limited how far you can go. The third option is join forces with an organisation such as us and come in under their registration. In our case, I'll show you more on that later, but in our case, you get our NDIS registration, we provide you all the clients, we do all the marketing, we do all the business, we handle the paperwork, and you're basically joining forces and partnering with someone. So we do what we're great at, you guys do what you're great at, and everyone has their job to do. So it's a joining forces system in that sort of respect. If you do go down the NDIS registration, then here's some of the things to consider. I think everyone knows it's expensive to go through it all, but consider the skill set you've got within your team as well. If you don't have someone in your team or your partner or something who's extremely good with paperwork and compliance and so on, you're going to have to pay for someone to come in and do that, and that's expensive. It's also ongoing expense and costs. You have a midterm audit, which unfortunately I'll have to be going through right now, and it's a headache. And then you have your re-registration after that as well, and they check through all your paperwork as well. So it is an ongoing thing. For me, in my situation, it's been cheap for the long-term return on investment. Even if I put a price on the stress and the hassles, it's been a bargain for the long-term investment of it. But we're 5 years into the process. Please remember that. So if you are unregistered though, you're still going to have hassles and costs. It's just going to be a tiny, tiny fraction of all of those things. So the next one is the rates the NDIS pays. That is another big question we get the whole time, and there's a lot of misinformation out there as well. So again, I can't go through everything. Price guide's available online to anyone. It's a very fun read with about 200 pages with every single price option within there. But if you just look at the PT rate, it will say about $65 per hour, which is horrific, I agree. Especially when then you look at an exophysiologist is like $180 something per hour. They've essentially triple the price on the NDIS. Again, I don't make the rules, wish I did. So that's what you would typically see. The rates do go up. I'm seeing a couple of comments there about different rates. Yeah, check. I think that 62.42 was pre it went up at the start of the financial year, basically. So it goes up about 4 or 5% each year, or everything does typically. But the problem is, and this is where everyone's different, so I can't give you a precise price. There are other things that you can charge for in regards to reporting, programming, planning, travel. There's a whole variety of different things in there that if you're doing it properly and the way the NDIS, the disability support industry does, you're not charging $65 just for an appointment and that's it. So read it properly. I can't go into precise prices that we do and charge, other than saying our NDIS rates are pretty much the same as our regular PT rates. So we don't have an issue with where the price is. Disability support has different rates again, but again, we try to align it to basically make it essentially the same price as our regular PT. We incur a higher cost in paperwork, but a lower cost in being able to get clients as well. So there's, again, pros and cons. One thing, people don't ask this question because they don't even necessarily click at this. You cannot charge upfront under the NDIS. So if you've got some clients with the NDIS at the moment and you are charging upfront, make sure, as you see in that second bottom bullet point, get in writing from the plan manager. Technically speaking, you cannot charge an NDIS participant in advance. And you also can't lock them into anything long term. So if the plan manager is saying you can, there's good and there's bad. There's not much in between the two, to be honest. So whatever they say, if there's a plan manager, get it in writing. The question there quickly, I'm reading comments now. Yes, it is all invoiced. And on that note, you don't tend to have the same issues that you'd have with regular PT. Because again, it's government funding. If it's self-managed, it's paying straight away. If it's NDIA managed, you're just sending the invoice. It's someone pumping through invoices all day long. They pay it straight away. If it's NDIA managed, it's instantaneous, which I'll get to in a second. So it's, again, it's not your regular client where you're going, oh, have they skipped town? They're going to pay me. It's secured government money, secured for you if it's done correctly. So you can sign someone up to a plan. So just run back on what I was saying earlier. They might be signed up to that plan, and it might be X amount of dollars over 3 years for training with you. They are not locked into that. You can't lock an NDIS participant in, but the government is locked into that. And as the participant uses it, then you as the provider or registered provider draw down on that funding is how it works. So again, it's just a different way of doing things. Here's another big one. No one asks this because people don't realize this. NDIS services are GST exempt. So no GST makes a pretty big difference. But the catch is you can be GST exempt if you're unregistered, but only if you're fully compliant with everything. Not quite my place to say what that is. That's more a check with an accountant, a check with the NDIS, because we are registered, so it's a bit different for us. But essentially, make sure if you do have a couple of NDIS participants, if you're paying GST on it, obviously many of you may not be GST registered, but if you are GST registered, if you're paying GST on it, check if you don't, check if you can avoid that, and do the right thing in that respect. If you're not paying GST because you think you don't have to, and you don't have this humongous amount of paperwork, then I'd be very cautious and do your checks on that to check you're not doing the wrong thing in that respect. So payment methods. So there's 3 key ways that you can get paid by the NDIS. So I'll quickly work through these ones. Again, it is complicated, so I'm doing a super quick overview for everyone. In no order of appearance. The first one is NDIA managed. Basically, you have this whole government PRODA login system. You upload things there, and you get paid basically instantly by it. The funds are already reserved for you. You essentially have a portal that lets you go and reserve the funds for you. If you're with us, we do all of that stuff for you. We literally do everything for you in regards to that, and it is not possible. So even if you're an unregistered provider, if someone is NDIA managed, you cannot train them. It's just not possible to do that. The next one is plan managed. They essentially have their own log-on portal like we do for the NDIA managed ones. And that's where there's that plan manager looking after them. And as you get the invoices, you send it to them, they draw down on it, they get it all control of what they can do, which again, that then tends to mean they're spectacular or they're horrible because they have a bit more control than what and how they can do it. So just be aware of that, but you should be getting help with them. Their job is to help that NDIS participant spend their funds correctly, and they're used to dealing with people who don't necessarily understand it, so they should be helping you. But again, you won't always get helpful plan managers. Just get stuff in writing, especially if it contradicts with something that you think is the right thing to do. Get in writing that they told you to do that. Self-managed, that's the easiest one. you tend to get the NDIS participants, if they or their family member is quite switched on in regards to paperwork and money, they're more likely to be self-managed because they can handle it, and it's better for them if they're switched on with paperwork and money and stuff. They pay like normal, you give them a receipt, they claim it back. It's as simple as that. But remember that last point, it's only GST exempt if then you're compliant with everything with that. Paperwork, I keep talking a lot about paperwork and different struggles and different things like that. So this is a quick overview of essentially the paperwork of just some of the paperwork that we have. All up, that's probably 100 and something pages of paperwork that we have. That's also uniquely written for us. It gets updated and changed the whole time. Even in our audit register, that's documented when we change one word on it. It's just the way the process works. I would assume it's not too different with allied health, but remember, coming from PT background, that probably sounds like a lot to everyone. Did to me, I know that. So the service agreement is the big one you'll hear talk of a lot. That's essentially the agreement between you and the NDIS participant. That's just a Google search for service agreement template for you guys, and that will have everything within that as to how it's working. That's essentially your signed contracts. Remember, though, the NDIS participants not locked into it. The government is locked into it, and then you just draw down those services as you deliver them. So almost at the end here. So there's a lot of information there. So you might now be going, well, that sounds amazing. It's confusing. What do I do? Which is the right option. So I really think it's your business and personal goals will determine which is right for you and where you are in your business stage. So for me, 5 years ago when we started this journey, we were a national company. We achieved a lot. It wasn't too difficult in the scheme of things to roll out. It was still difficult, but it was absolutely doable. So that wasn't too hard for us. But if I look at where my business was 15 years ago, when it was me and half a dozen PTs working for me, and I was still on tools, so to speak, it would not have been possible for me to achieve it in terms of my skill set, my team's skill set, my budget, all of those different things. It just wouldn't have been possible. So that's then where that option of joining forces with someone makes a lot more sense, because it's a great opportunity to get into it. So lastly, finishing off, and I'm pretty much almost right on time, which is pretty good. So the last bit, if you are looking at potentially coming on board with us, head to that link there, fityourability.com.au/OzActive, and there's a bunch of information there more about that. In summary, though, we have two different ways of being a part of us. One is work for us or one of our locations that someone owns as a team member. It's free. You work, you get paid, no rent, no expenses, no nothing. We were doing that long before NDIS registration. Proud to say that's one of the reasons we are the Employer of the Year for last year. And we basically line up the clients for you, provide you the clients, and we're most of our owners in different locations are just desperate for more amazing PTs. So we would love to hear from you. You'll see more information on that link there. The other option, if you're going, no, I want to be the boss, I have a business, why would I have a job doing NDIS sessions for, to be blunt, for lower money when I own a business and I should be getting paid my regular rate as a business owner? If you're thinking that, then that's where the business owner option is for you. So whether you're a small PT business or a big PT business or a gym looking at adding on an additional service to your gym, that's where the business ownership option works for you. We provide all the NDIS registration, all the branding, all the marketing, absolutely everything. Remember, we were doing this before NDIS registration. So NDIS registration is just one extra perk. It's just the one that we seem to get the most attention about now. So either way, check out that link. I've also put a couple of links there to getting your disability worker screening card and doing the NDIS induction course. So that's nothing to do with us. That's something I recommend everyone does. And a link to our PT industry blog as well. And lastly, someone here just queried, I'll answer that. Can we do a combo of entrepreneur and employee? I'm guessing you mean a team member and business owner. It wouldn't really make sense to me. if you're a business owner, why do you want to work as an employee? Because a business owner should make more than an employee, right? So that's my answer to that. But we have had many people start working for us and then go on to purchase our own location. And that's where we've been able to keep some great people long-term, people we used to lose because we couldn't offer career advancement working for us. Now go, I want career advancement. I want to step up in the company like Tyler here saw before. Or I want career advancement in the form of being my own boss. Why leave and reinvent the wheel when I can just basically buy a pre-made system, basically. So hope that answers that one quickly. Either way, connect with me. That's my personal contact details there. Connect with me on Facebook if it's social media is the best one. Otherwise, that's my phone number and my direct email. And I'll hope to talk to you guys soon and hope to see some of you guys at the awards next Friday. See ya.